Bear down 27th in quarterback pressure rate in Ben Johnson's scheme. That's not a minor detail. That's a crisis. And the people at ESPN already said it out loud this week. The monsters of the Midway's defensive line does not have a single first-tier player, not one. And the man who could have solved that exact problem, the same guy who finished first in the entire NFL in hurries last season, just walked out the door for two third-round picks. Ryan Poles had 7 picks in this draft. Now here's the question Mina Kimes threw into the air this week that still has no answer. Can this team compete for a Super Bowl ranking 27th in quarterback pressure? Because there is a move that Halas Hall is evaluating right now that either puts out that fire for good or confirms the worst fear of every fan in the Windy City. And when I tell you what it is, you'll understand exactly why the entire Bear Nation is furious today. If you trust the process, hit that like button and subscribe. Let's go. The Bears finished 27th in the league in team pressure rate last season, 27th in a Ben Johnson system where quarterbacks have all day to find their receivers, where the pass rush is supposed to be the hidden engine making everything else work, and Chicago ranked 27th. That is a real problem, and everyone knows it, including the people at ESPN. Mina Kimes and Ben Solak said it directly this week in their post-draft breakdown. Solak did not sugarcoat it. The Bears' defensive line room is full of second- and third-tier guys. There is no premier player in that group. No one walks in and says, I'm the anchor, you're the complement, and you're the situational rusher. Without that top-tier player, the whole room operates below its potential, and that void has a name, a last name, and a price tag. Jonathan Greenard. Minnesota traded him to Philadelphia. The price was 2 third-round picks, one in 2026 and one in 2027. 2 third-rounders, that's what Greenard cost, and the Eagles didn't hesitate. They signed him immediately to a 4-year deal worth over $100 million. Man, 2 third-round picks. The Bears had 7 picks in this draft. Now, Mina Kimes said out loud what a lot of fans were thinking in the moment. The Bears should have traded for Greenard. Solak pushed back a little, pointing out that Greenard ended up in the NFC East, not the NFC North, so at least he's not in the division. But the discomfort in that conversation was real. Because Kimes' tactical argument holds up, you have to remember who Greenard is when he's healthy and motivated. In 2024 with the Vikings, he posted 18 tackles for loss and 12 sacks. He finished 3rd in the NFL in total pressures with 80, and he led the entire league in hurries with 59. According to Pro Football Focus, 59 times in a single season where he made the quarterback uncomfortable, rattled, forced to throw early. That's Pro Bowl level impact. And the Bears watched. They were apparently in conversations about Max Crosby, according to Solak, but they didn't pull the trigger. Not on Crosby, not on Greenard, and now they have a defensive line room that Dennis Allen, their defensive coordinator, is going to be working with one hand tied behind his back. Look, I could be wrong, but there is real context here. Greenard is just past 30, and his numbers over the last 2 seasons showed a dip. There's real risk in that investment. The Bears clearly calculated that the risk wasn't worth it. Maybe they're betting they can patch this with short, cheap veteran deals, throw a couple of names at Allen's scheme, and see what happens. Cameron Jordan, most recently with the New Orleans Saints, posted 15 tackles for loss and 10.5 sacks last season. His market value sits at $6.8 million. Jadeveon Clowney put up 12 tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks with Dallas in 2025 and should be available for around $5.7 million according to Spot Rack. And then there's Hassan Reddick, a pass rusher whose career earnings have crossed $80 million, who had double-digit sacks in 4 straight seasons before a couple of quieter years. Mike Pendleton over at Bears Wire on USA Today has him on the short list of smart fits for Chicago in 2026. The question Kimes threw out there and that nobody has answered yet is this: can you compete for a Super Bowl when you're 27th in pressure rate? And the honest answer is no. Not consistently. You can win regular season games with your offense. You can hide the weakness with Ben Johnson's brilliance. But in January, against elite offenses, you need to get home to the quarterback. Look, I could be wrong about the timing, but I believe Chicago is going to make a move at this position before training camp. Kimes said it herself. This team is going to be looking for a pass rusher at some point. The question is whether they go veteran and cheap on a 1-year deal or whether they reach higher. That is what we are watching. And while that defensive debate is burning, there's another fire being cooked up in Springfield, Illinois, that is just as important to the future of this franchise. Governor J.B. Pritzker said it this week without any ambiguity. He wants the Bears stadium deal done, and he wants it now. His exact words were, "We have to be competitive here. We want to make sure that the Bears see Illinois as the best alternative for them." Illinois already moved the ball to the state Senate, where the mega projects legislation passed by the House now has to clear more votes before May 31st, which is when the spring legislative session closes. The Bears CEO has said the decision on the new stadium will come by late spring or early summer. That means we're on the final clock right now. The remaining sticking points are basically two things. First, there's a dispute over property tax relief for neighbors near the mega project site. Second, the Bears want guarantees that there will be no amusement tax baked into the deal. And what makes everything more complicated is that Indiana already passed its legislation to bring the Bears to Hammond. Indiana moved fast, moved clean. Illinois is running against the clock and against a rival that already has its doors wide open. I'm not going to be dramatic about this, but this deal has to get done. A stadium on the Chicago lakefront with the Bears playing there is different. It's a symbol. It's the identity of the Windy City. Pritzker knows what's at stake. That's why he used the word competitive. He's not talking about goodwill. He's talking about real urgency. And for Bears fans, this is the biggest offseason story that has nothing to do with the field because the stadium defines generations. It defines whether your kids are going to watch the Bears in Chicago or in Indiana. All right, now let's run through the names circulating to fill out different spots on this roster. On the defensive line, beyond Reddick, there's DJ Reader, who just finished his contract with the Detroit Lions, the same Detroit that's now one step below the Bears in the NFC North. Y'all don't understand, that one stings for Lion fans. Pendleton flagged Reader as a viable option for Chicago, too. Reader isn't going to give you flashy sack numbers, and he knows it, but he played all 17 games last season in Detroit, racked up 28 tackles, and is exactly the kind of veteran who makes everyone else around him better in the trenches. Leadership, presence, consistency, and if the New York Giants are already circling him to fill the void left by Dexter Lawrence, the Bears need to throw their name in that conversation. In the backfield, Bill Zimmerman over at Windy City Gridiron points to Alexander Mattison as the most logical RB3 for Chicago. Swift and Monangai have the job locked up. Roshan Johnson looks like he's going to be on the roster bubble. And Madison, former starter for the Vikings, former Raider, is 28 years old and missed all of last season with a neck injury he suffered in the preseason. His projected market value in 2026 is just $1.4 million. At that price, if Madison has some fuel left in the tank, it's a smart, low-risk move. And speaking of the backfield, fam, there is a human story here that deserves a moment. Christian Vaughn, a running back out of Hawaii, was confirmed this week for the Bears rookie minicamp. Why does it matter? Because Vaughn is essentially Rome Odunze's brother. They grew up together in Las Vegas. They call each other brothers on social media going back to Odunze's days at Washington. And Vaughn's story is straight out of a movie. After the pandemic wiped out a year of football, he lost his roster spot, took a job at Target, and only got back into the game after a former high school coach called him and told him to start reaching out to junior colleges. Butte College in Oroville, California, gave him a shot, and Vaughn responded by rushing for 1,456 yards at 7.0 yards per carry in 2023 at the JUCO level. Is he going to make the active roster? Honestly, that's a tough ask, but if he lands on the practice squad, nobody at Halas Hall is going to be more motivated than Christian Vaughn. And having Rome Odunze in that building as his guy, that's everything when you're trying to prove you belong in the NFL. Came out of the draft with a respectable class, an 11 ranking in the NFL Power Rankings, a governor sprinting to hand them a stadium deal, and one unanswered question on the defensive line that is going to define how scary this team is come January. That's what's on the line right now. Are they going after Reddick, Reader, Cameron Jordan, Clowney, or are they going to hit us with a move nobody saw coming? Tell me down in the comments what you would do if you were Ryan Poles. Because this defensive line room needs something, and free agency still has options sitting there waiting. If you made it this far, you already know what it is. Drop that like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and tell me below what you think about the Bears pass rush situation in 2026. Bear down, Chicago.